So very briefly, good afternoon to all of you, dear friends. Since we just broke bread together around table, I think we can call all of you friends. So, and also our special guest for this afternoon, Archbishop Paul Gallagher, is from England. We have a few English guys in the room. And I suppose he's a big supporter of Liverpool football team because he's from Liverpool. So born and grew up in Liverpool. And so was then a Catholic priest and then began to study here in Rome at the Gregorian University, Canon Law. 1984, he finished his studies and then, started serving the Holy See as its ambassador. And as such, he served in Tanzania, in Uruguay, Philippines, Australia, and all. Then Pope Francis brought him here after a short experience, an interesting experience in Burundi. In Burundi, while serving over there, fortunately, I think in all the unrest and everything there, I think even his own residence was bombed at one point. Just that he escaped the attack and the bombing. So Pope Francis brought him here in the Vatican in 2014 to serve the Office for International Relations. We call it Relations with the Other States, where he began serving as a secretary. He's now the one in charge now of that office. So if you want, you may refer to him as the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Vatican, if you want. But the name of the office is Relations with the States. So he is the secretary serving that. And we call all of these secretaries because the Pope is supposed to be the one. And everybody who serves in the secretariat is a secretary, the Holy Father. So Archbishop Gallagher then is the secretary in this office. And we're glad and happy, feel honored to welcome him this afternoon in our midst. So Your Excellency, I'll give you the word.
Thank you, Your Eminence, for that introduction. And I think this is the first time I've been to the inside of the Casina since this was redone. It's very much improved, so I think the praise should go to Archbishop Sancho Sharondo for his efforts on behalf of that, and obviously best wishes to Cardinal Turkson in his new capacity as the Chancellor. Thank you for the introduction. You talk about my time in Burundi and the house was bombed. I was fortunately on vacation when that happened. It was more of a trial for my young diplomatic secretary. But getting your house bombed in Burundi is nothing. My predecessor was assassinated, so I got off lightly. Anyway, the topic this afternoon with the Christian perspective on the built environment and its transformation towards sustainability, inclusion, and beauty. Your Eminence, Excellencies, distinguished academicians, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, I wish to thank Professor Joachim von Braun for the kind invitation to offer some concluding remarks at this event on the built environment. You have come to the end of these 2 intense days in which you tried to respond to some important aspects of what a more livable future might look like for humanity. You have reviewed the scientific evidence and emerging concepts related to sustainable construction, urban design, and spatial planning, as well as outlined an agenda for research, innovation, and implementation in relevant fields for the coming decade. You've also listened to numerous thoughtful reflections by experts from various disciplines and different cultures. All of this forms part of the very approach and orientation proper to an Academy of Sciences, to foster dialogue that is both transdisciplinary and intercultural. This approach is indispensable when addressing environmental challenges and, in particular, our responses to those challenges that, unfortunately, are only growing more daunting with time. As we have seen during the discussions, transdisciplinary and intercultural dialogues are central aspects to build a livable built environment. In my final works, I would like to offer the Christian perspective on the process of building a livable built environment, focusing my reflection around three key criteria endorsed by this conference: sustainability, inclusion, and beauty. I will do this by drawing from the rich tradition of the social doctrine of the Church, and in particular by calling attention to some of the more pertinent ideas developed by Pope Francis in his seminal encyclical Laudato Si, which the concept note of this conference aptly describes as a game-changing encyclical on the care for our common home. Let us start with the first key criterion, sustainability. It may be useful to revisit the etymology of this word. It is derived from the ancient Latin word sustinere, which means to support, to keep standing. In the figurative sense, it has a notable double meaning, both to defend, to protect, and at the same time to sustain and to feed. This dual meaning recalls the biblical mandate of cultivating and caring for, which we find in Genesis 2:15. These are two intimately interrelated actions. We cannot care for without cultivating. It undermines future progress and fruitfulness. At the same time, we also cannot cultivate without caring for our common home. This would risk underestimating the impact of our actions, especially in the long term. Without delving too deeply in an exhaustive historical analysis, I think we can agree that this is what we have witnessed since the Industrial Revolution, namely rapid technological development and progress without the concomitant careful evaluation have negatively affected the natural and social environment in which we live. We can apply this same argument to the built environment. Here too, there have been a number of great successes brought about by technological progress. However, at the same time, we would do well to consider the decline in the quality of human life, highlighted in the paragraphs 43 to 47 of Laudato Si, also associated with urbanization, the disproportionate and unruly growth of many cities, their unhealthy conditions, inefficient structures, excessively resource wasteful, social breakdown, increased violence, rise in new forms of social aggression, growing drug use by young people, loss of identity, silent rupture of the bonds of integration and social cohesion. As Pope Francis rightly points out, we were not meant to be inundated by cement, asphalt, glass, and metal, and deprived of physical contact with nature. Laudato Si 44. We cannot cultivate without caring for our common home. Again, Laudato Si offers us some interesting insights. Cultivating, it says, refers to plowing or working, while caring for means protecting, overseeing, and preserving. This implies a relationship of mutual responsibility between human beings and nature. For too long, this sense of mutual responsibility has been lacking in our societies and culture. Instead, we have allowed ourselves to exert a certain dominion over the natural environment. On the 1st of June 1972, Pope Paul VI highlighted this concern by addressing a message to the Stockholm Conference on the Human Environment, the 50th anniversary of which occurs in these days. On that occasion, he posed the following question: will our civilization, tempted to increase its marvelous achievements by despotic domination of the human environment, discover in time the way to control its material growth, to use the earth's food with wise moderation, and to cultivate real poverty of spirit in order to carry out urgent and indispensable reconversions? These words remain timely and prophetic, already providing a glimpse some 50 years ago of the coming sustainability crisis that we now face as human civilization. His answer to this question, which was equally prophetic, remains true for us today? We would like to think so, for the very excesses of progress lead men, and significantly the young, to recognize that their power over nature must be exercised in accordance with ethical demands. The saturation caused in some people by a life that is too easy, and the growing awareness in a large number of the solidarity that links mankind contribute to restoring the respectful attitude on which man's relationship with his environment is essentially based. Growing in our awareness of this mutual responsibility between humanity and nature is the best way to face today's crisis of sustainability. Every crisis is provocative. It not only warns of a danger, but also opens up to the idea of opportunity, an opportunity that can respond to the hope of Pope Francis that although the post-industrial period may well be remembered as one of the most irresponsible in history, nonetheless, there is reason to hope that humanity at the dawn of the 21st century will be remembered for having generously shouldered its grave responsibilities. We have the ability and freedom to guide, develop, and limit our power. Endowed with reason by our Creator, we can do this through human ingenuity, imbued with humility, to also recognize our duty to care and learn from nature, which, if we listen and observe, will inspire our actions of cultivating and caring for our common home. The building and restoring of the built environment should be enlightened by this ingenious humility. The numerous reflections that have been offered to us in these 2 days show us just how many spaces it is possible to cover in order to make this ingenious humility bear fruit. The list is long: spreading sustainable architecture, evaluating cultural heritage, building the urban and rural nexus, strengthening circular economy, implementing wise gardening, promoting the green transformation of the housing infrastructure mobility complex, fostering regenerative social urban life, etc. These are only a few of the many ideas on the table after these 2 days, and each deserves further study to ensure the sustainability of urban social life. They are diverse ideas that require an integrated approach along a clear path with a clear direction that demands we turn from the throwaway culture towards a culture of care. This allows me to introduce a second key aspect: inclusion. The throwaway culture is highly exclusive, while a culture of care is inclusive and sustainable over time. When we talk about caring for our common home, attention must be paid not only to the natural environment, but also to all those who live within and share with us our common home, both now and in the future. This brings us to the important concept of integral ecology, which was elaborated upon extensively in Laudato Si. Integral ecology requires the adoption of a more integral and integrating vision. This vision is capable of bringing together the following aspects. 1, environmental ecology, which includes the analysis and care of the natural ecosystem. 2, economic ecology, which regards the organization of the production and distribution system. And thirdly, social ecology, relating to the subsidiary institutional system that regulates human relations from the primary social group, the family, to international life, passing through the local community and the nation. In this perspective, the concept of integral ecology assumes central importance in the building and restoring of the built environment, where the interaction of environmental ecology, economic ecology, and social ecology are based on a mutual responsibility between human beings and nature, with greater attention to the most vulnerable. As indicated above, sustainability calls us to the interdependent actions of cultivating and caring for our common home. However, if we do not anchor these actions to more inclusive outcomes, they themselves risk being unsustainable over time. Just as there is a strong interdependence between the actions of cultivating and caring for, there is a similar interdependence between the concepts of sustainability and inclusion. Sustainability without inclusion risks falling apart at its base. Inclusion without sustainability risks undermining the future. Given the interrelationship between living space and human behavior, those who design buildings, neighborhoods, public spaces, and cities ought to draw on the various disciplines which help us to understand people's thought processes, symbolic language, and ways of acting. It is not enough to seek the beauty of design. More precious still is the service we offer to another kind of beauty, people's quality of life, their adaptation to the environment, encounter, and mutual assistance. Here, too, we see how important it is that urban planning always takes into consideration the views of those who will live in these areas. That's taken from Laudato Si 150. So here we come to the third key aspect, beauty. As Benedict XVI said to a group of artists on the 21st of November 2009, what is capable of restoring enthusiasm and confidence? What can encourage the human spirit to rediscover its path, to raise its eyes to the horizon, to dream of a life worthy of its vocation, if not beauty? Beauty opens our mind to many new and inspiring perspectives. I would like to propose some of them as the conclusion to my speech. In the first place, we can recall the beauty of the challenge we face, that is, building a sustainable and inclusive built environment able to foster a culture of care. In order to implement it, we should adopt an ingenious humility based on the mutual responsibility between human beings and nature. The second aspect is also recalled by Laudato Si. That is, if we approach nature and the environment without openness to awe and wonder, if we no longer speak the language of fraternity and beauty in our relationship with the world, our attitude will be that of masters, consumers, ruthless exploiters, unable to set limits on their immediate needs. By contrast, if we feel intimately united with all that exists, then sobriety and care will well up spontaneously. The building of a sustainable and inclusive built environment always should be open to awe and wonder. This attitude in front of reality puts us in a position that encourages the construction of an artificial built environment to take shape through an attitude of learning and respect for and from natural environment. Thirdly, building beautifully requires a human education in beauty itself. By learning to see and appreciate beauty, we learn to reject self-interested pragmatism. If we want to bring about deep change, we need to realize that certain mindsets really do influence our behavior. Our efforts at education will be inadequate and ineffectual unless we strive to promote a new way of thinking about human beings, life, society, and our relationship with nature. In the building of a sustainable and inclusive built environment, education to beauty and to culture of care may at first glance seem secondary, but they are the best answer to overcoming our throwaway culture. Dear friends, at the closing of the Second Vatican Ecumenical Council on the 8th of December 1965, St. Paul VI addressed another group of artists and stated that this world in which we live needs beauty in order not to sink into despair. It is beauty, like truth, which brings joy to the heart of man and is that precious fruit which resists the wear and tear of time, which unites generations and makes them share things in admiration. Therefore, let us not forget that planning the built environment in the light of sustainability and inclusion is an art form which has long-term impact, especially in this ongoing global transition to a new responsible alliance between humankind and nature. Thank you very much.